So in this clip you're about to see, Ben Shapiro is confronted with the reality of dead civilians in Gaza, and his response lays out the exact intellectual and moral justification for collective punishment that we are seeing play out today. We need to listen very carefully because this is the moment the mask came off. If you believe in holding powerful voices accountable, show your support by hitting that like and subscribe button. Now let's watch this together and I'll give my 2 cents at the end.
One person called you a genocidal warmonger for that rhetoric. And there's a person called Mohammed Hijab in a video called in responding to Ben Shapiro on Israel. He says this.
First and foremost, I'll say, yes, we condemn any woman, child, or whatever it may be that's being killed who's Jewish and who's not a non-combatant. But why is it the case, Ben, why is it the case that none of your colleagues or you have been able to offer one single condolence, one single condemnation, one single word of sympathy for any of the Gazans that have been killed? Don't try and smear us. Don't try and slander us. Don't try and attack. Don't try and produce red herrings. And I think you're an ass, a jackass. And we're not talking about Hamas. We're talking about children here. We're talking about women here. We're talking about elderly people. You make me sick. You make me sick.
What's your response to that, Ben? I mean, that will be, I'm sure, a reaction you've heard from a lot of people. What do you feel about that?
I mean, my obvious response is, of course, I feel horrible for the people who are being held by Hamas in a state of tyranny for the past 15 years. Hamas was the elected government in Gaza in 2006. There hasn't been an election since then. All the people who are today ranting, as you heard Mohammed Hijab doing right there, I don't hear them talking about liberating Gaza from Hamas, which is the greatest threat to the way of life of Gazans on planet Earth. Again, I have nothing but sympathy for Hamas, for the people that Hamas is governing, or the people that Hamas is exploiting, really. I have nothing but sympathy for civilians there. Israel has to defend itself. I don't understand exactly what the expectation would be here. Is the expectation that because Hamas uses human shields, that Israel therefore has to go home and wait to have its people murdered again? Israel tried it the way that Mohammed Hijab and others would like. Israel literally pulled, in 2005, they literally pulled thousands of Jews out of the Gaza Strip. It was called the disengagement, and it was massively unpopular in wide swaths of Israel. They pulled out, they built a wall, and they basically said, go ahead and govern yourselves. And this is the result of that. You think anyone in Israel, no one in Israel wants to reoccupy the Gaza Strip. No one. That's why Israel has been studiously avoiding reoccupying the Gaza Strip since 2006, despite the fact that they have been living underground in large parts of Israel for weeks at a time because of rocket attacks that have been fired on a regular basis from the Gaza Strip into major cities.
But let me ask you this, Ben.
Ashkelon.
In Gaza, you have 2 million people, many of whom are young people. Pretty hopeless conditions to live in. I think people would agree with that. Not much chance of getting out of there. They live in very densely populated areas. We know from in the last 24 hours that Israel controls water, controls energy, power going in there. Many would see that that is a control that Israel shouldn't have if you want to afford equal rights to people living in Gaza. And then it comes down to proportionate response and how you try and, like I say, how do you attack Hamas, given they're all over Gaza, living amongst the general population? How do you attack and isolate genuine members of Hamas, genuine terrorists, from the civilian population? And given that is almost impossible, clearly, what is a proportionate response to what's happened here?
Well, frankly, I don't believe in proportionate response to terrorism. I believe that the way that you stop terrorism is with wildly disproportionate response. That doesn't mean in terms of targeting civilians. It means in terms of killing as many terrorists as humanly possible and allowing them to dictate the terms of engagement by hiding behind civilians in areas that they are supposedly responsible for, means that the only option for Israel is to surrender to Hamas's hatred of its own citizens, its willingness to use its own children as human shields. No country worth its salt could ever do that. No government trying to protect its own citizens could ever do that. What exactly is the alternative option other than for Israel to try to kill as many of these terrorists and depose Hamas and hopefully help put in place some sort of international overseen community that would actually govern the Gaza Strip in a rational, reasonable way that actually maximizes the possibilities of its citizens? Israel, over the course of the last year, allowed some 15,000 work permits to Gazans. Many of those work permits we're now finding out were used by terrorists in order to cross the border.
So let's be absolutely clear. The grief Ben Shapiro expresses for the victims of the terror attack is real and justified, but what we just witnessed is the intellectual sleight of hand he uses to pivot from that understandable emotion to a call for what are by any definition war crimes. The key line was when he said, "Frankly, I don't believe in proportionate response. I believe that the way you stop terrorism is with wildly disproportionate response." And that's why this clip is so important. This wasn't a spontaneous emotional reaction to a recent event. This was his considered pre-existing ideology. It was the blueprint. And now, in Gaza in 2025, we are seeing the real horrifying world consequence. And now, in Gaza in 2025, we are seeing the horrifying real-world consequences of this exact way of thinking. As we speak, Netanyahu is invading Gaza City with plans to take it over. Ben here is performing a dangerous act of moral justification, using the undeniable evil of Hamas to sanitize the collective punishment of the Palestinian people. This is how cycles of violence are perpetuated, and it is our job to see it, call it out, and reject it. So, do you think his argument is a justifiable response to terror or a dangerous justification for war crimes? Let me know your honest take in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button for more. Thanks for watching.